Let's start with a question. What happens when one of the most powerful leaders on the planet, a man with an active international arrest warrant for war crimes, lands in your country? And what if your country is legally, on paper, required to arrest him? Well, this isn't just some political science hypothetical. It's the explosive dilemma facing Cambodia right now.
I mean, seriously, what would happen? Would a country actually risk a massive global crisis, a diplomatic firestorm, just to uphold international law? It's a fascinating question, so let's break it down.
Because for Cambodia, this is a very immediate and very pressing reality. As Putin potentially plans state visits around the globe, the world is watching to see what happens. Will a nation like Cambodia choose to uphold the law, or will it bow to geopolitical pressure? The implications either way are just huge.
Okay, so first things first. Let's look at the law on paper. To really get why Cambodia is in such a tough spot, we have to start with the international legal framework that got us here in the first place.
This all starts with the International Criminal Court, the ICC. Now, on March 17, 2023, the court issued an arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin. The charge? War crimes, specifically related to the alleged deportation of Ukrainian children. And here's the crucial part for Cambodia. They've been a member of the court, a signatory, since way back in 2002. And the language of the Rome Statute, that's the treaty that created the ICC, it's incredibly specific. Article 86 says member states shall cooperate fully. In plain English, that means arresting and surrendering anyone with an ICC warrant. From a purely legal standpoint, there's really no wiggle room here. And Cambodia isn't alone in this, not by a long shot. 125 countries have signed on to this, creating what looks like a really powerful global system of justice. So on paper, the ICC's reach is pretty vast.
But, and this is a huge but, this is where we see the fundamental weakness of the ICC. Some of the world's most powerful nations, the US, Russia, China, they don't recognize its authority. Russia basically laughed off the warrant, calling it insignificant, and then turned around and issued its own warrants for the ICC judges.
And this gets to the absolute core of the problem. You see, the ICC can issue all the warrants it wants, but it has no police force, no army to enforce them. It is completely, 100% dependent on its member states to do the heavy lifting. You could almost think of it as a legal giant with incredibly fragile arms.
So, we've got the law on paper. It's clear. But how does that stack up against the messy, complicated reality of global power politics? This is where we hit the wall of what's known as realpolitik.
You can really see the bind Cambodia is in here. On one side, you've got this clear legal duty under the Rome Statute. But on the other, you have the harsh reality of its political and economic survival, which is pulling it in the exact opposite direction. It's a truly impossible choice.
So why is that political pressure so immense? Well, reason number one is China. Over the last couple of decades, Cambodia has become one of Beijing's closest allies. China is its #1 investor, funding these massive infrastructure projects. And given China's no-limits partnership with Russia, it would be diplomatic and economic suicide for Cambodia to arrest Putin. It's just not going to happen. And the second reason the outcome here seems pretty inevitable is that there's already a clear precedent. It's not like we're just guessing. Other countries have faced this exact problem, and they've created what you might call a pattern of inaction.
Just look at the timeline. Back in August 2023, South Africa, another ICC member, twisted itself into knots trying to figure out what to do before Putin ultimately decided not to attend the BRICS summit there. And then, more recently, in September 2024, Putin did go to Mongolia, also an ICC member. And what happened? Absolutely nothing. He was welcomed with full honors. These precedents send a crystal clear signal. When push comes to shove, geopolitics win.
So what are the broader implications here? I mean, what does this all mean for the big picture? Cambodia's dilemma actually reveals some pretty uncomfortable truths about the current state of international law and justice.
And look, we don't even have to speculate about what Cambodia would do. Their former Prime Minister Hun Sen has already called the idea of arresting Putin dangerous, and his reasoning is key. He says Cambodia will choose its strategic alliances over what it sees as a risky international law.
This whole situation just highlights a major criticism of the ICC, especially from countries in the global south. There's this perception that the court applies justice unevenly, that it goes after leaders from smaller, weaker nations, while powerful leaders from the West who initiated conflicts like the Iraq War, for example, have never faced any scrutiny. It creates the impression of a two-tiered system of justice.
So, when you put it all together, the takeaway is pretty unavoidable. If Vladimir Putin ever does land in Phnom Penh, nothing is going to happen to him.
That legal obligation, so clear in the Rome Statute, will almost certainly shatter against the hard wall of geopolitics. For the sake of its own survival, Cambodia will choose its powerful allies.
And all of this leaves us with a really deeply unsettling question. Is international law only for the weak? Has it just become a tool for the powerful to use against their adversaries, while they themselves remain completely untouchable? Cambodia's dilemma, you see, it isn't just about one country's choice. It reflects a world where the ideal of equal justice for all still seems like a very, very distant dream.